Hello, all. Okay, folks, this is MB Geeks. Let's talk. I am here with my favorite person on Twitter, personally, the man who just makes them cry and just mops the floor with their tears. I've got Jack Beers here, folks. I've
Hello.
never seen people get so triggered on Twitter as bad as sometimes he does it, but he manages to do it and do it with a smile.
It's all fun.
Great to see you again. All right, so folks, this theme we've had going on this month, or the last 2 weeks of the month, we talked about classic horror, we talked about slasher movies. Yesterday, Jack and I, with Positive Candor, we talked about, the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock. Today, folks, this is really the mindset. You got to kind of be open up to admitting to this kind of thing. Movies that scared the hell out of us. We've had horror movies, we've had suspense movies, but a scary movie, a movie that just literally, we were talking about behind the curtain here before we went live, pausing it, and then you're like, do I really want to keep watching this? And after you watch it, you got those hairs on the back of your neck going. You have some bad dreams about this shit. It really kind of gets to you. And for some of us, and I'll be the first one to admit, there are certain movies that I have not seen since I was a child because I don't want to watch them again because they freak me out that bad. But, Jack, I have about 4 or 5 movies that I would say to this day still scare the shit out of me. And one of them I've said flat out, I'm never going to watch in my lifetime again. And if I ever break that, I'll either have to be really drunk, really high on some crazy shit to be watching that movie again. But your thoughts on the whole, when we think about horror movies and we think about, suspense and all that, it's horror's like comedy and like anything else. It's subject to our opinions, our interpretations,
Right.
even our cultures of what we were maybe raised on, grew up on, or something like that, and what our maybe beliefs and superstitions or things like that were. So movies scare people for different reasons. Nobody is. Some people really like jump scares. Some people really hate jump scares. I'm not a big fan of them. I like build up, suspense build up to the payoff. Pop Culture Avenger, how you doing, buddy? Hey, just FYI, if you want to come in and hang out with us. Oh, dude, I can totally understand that. I can totally understand that.
The Exorcist was one of the movies I wanted to talk about. In fact,
Yeah, so that's kind of my spill, my pitch on the whole thing. Hey, Pop Culture Avenger, if you want to come in, let me know. In fact, I'll just go ahead and shoot it here. Anybody wants to come in, I'd love to hear people's thoughts on what movies really scared them today. And, yeah, I agree. Exorcist is definitely one of those that, yeah, still scares the crap out of me. And, it's funny when you really think about it. All those practical effects are scarier than a lot of the CGI stuff we've got now. A case in point, and Jack, I'll let you get in on this in just a second. You can pick whatever movie you want to talk about first, obviously. The Thing. I'm gonna go with John Carpenter's The Thing. Those practical effects. I know Stone Loki did a watch party with it. I was asleep by that time, so I couldn't watch it. But I do remember The Thing, and I mean that's one of those movies that scares the crap out of you, and it still holds up to this day. Okay, you're at work, Pop Culture Avenger. Gotcha. No worries, man. No worries. Hope you enjoy. But then they made the remake of The Thing, and they used the CGI, and it just did not hold up to the level of the fear. and the scariness of the thing. I mean, it doesn't hold a candle to what John Carpenter was able to put together for that. But that being said, Jack, you know me, I always like to give my little spill. Your thoughts on scary movies and what movie you want to start off with, man.
Okay, well, I mean, first of all, just to explain, when I was a kid, I was very gullible. um, when when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out, the movie, the live action movie, I thought those turtles were real because I knew there was people in suits, but I couldn't I knew there were people in suits, not but these turtles, they could talk, their mouths moved, their eyes moved, they had expressions. I thought they were real. I couldn't figure out how they could do that and still put a guy in a suit. And of course, that was because Jim Henson are geniuses. The people at the Jim Henson Company, and they knew how to do like electric, like a radio signal puppetry now by then. So that's how they did it. Yeah, all day long thing in 1982. That's a good one. But
Yeah,
what actually scared
PCAT.
me? Okay, I was gonna say what actually scared me was there was a cartoon that Walt Disney did called the Skeleton Dance, I believe it was, and it was it's literally the cartoon of these skeletons coming out, and they dance around with each other. They like use each other as xylophones and stuff like that. And for some reason, that put the fear of skeletons in me. Right, I was deadly afraid of skeletons. When I would go to when I'd wake up in the middle of the night to go pee or whatever, I'd run past the hallway into the bathroom because I was afraid that there was a skeleton that was going to come and eat me.
And for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, I'm going to show you
Yes, this
just a
one.
little bit of it. We probably won't get any sound, but
Yeah, I wouldn't put the sound on.
what's that?
I wouldn't
I
put
don't
the
think.
sound on just for copyright reasons.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave the sound off. But the skeleton dance, I'll just show you guys a little small taste of what he's talking about. I know this.
Hmm.
I know this one. This actually is creepy as hell.
Yeah, it did scare me back in the day. And
I mean, dude, it scared me.
yeah, and it's like eventually the skeletons come out of their graves and they start dancing with each other and stuff like that. That scared me. I remember that the little hand
Here we
coming
go.
down.
Here we go. Let's see if we. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
stuff here.
that. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I remember as a kid watching this. You're just like, oh my god, this is creepy as all hell.
Yeah, it was. And I couldn't reconcile it back then. So I was afraid of skeletons. Nowadays, luckily nowadays, since I've done film and stuff like that, I know like how everything's made and everything. So I can just literally just pull out skulls and skeletons and stuff like that. I can be like, to be or not to be, like I don't care now. It's fun.
Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him, Horatio. Yeah, that's about the extent of my Shakespeare. But yeah, no, I get it. That it's funny you mention that because yeah, I think for a lot of us, even though it was probably very old, even when a lot of us saw it, it still was freaky. The music is just eerie as hell.
I think that thing came out in the 30s
I
or
think so.
40s. Yeah, and to scare somebody in the 80s who was that young still, you know what I mean? That it had a good effect. It had a real good effect. Let's see. Besides that one, I know we've already talked about Freddy Krueger, but there's a couple of instances that are seared in my memory, especially
Go
from the
for it.
first two. The first one was from the first movie, the original Nightmare, where you first see you first see Freddy Krueger, and he's got the long arms
Oh yeah.
going, and then Tina goes like "Please God" or "Oh God" or something like that, and then Freddy goes, "This is God," and then he starts chasing her. For some reason, that part where he's like, "This is God," that was seared in my memory. Um,
Dude, that skeleton thing, I just looked it up, came out in August of 1929.
Jeez.
That thing needs to be in the Library of Congress.
If it's not already, yeah, it
If it's
should
not
be.
already.
Yeah,
That, but
definitely.
yeah. No, there were no, I agree with you. There were many parts in especially the first Freddy Krueger movie that, parts can be scary. And, when we talked about slasher movies, that doesn't mean they can't scare you.
Hmm.
Suspense movies scare me more than anything else. So there are parts in any movie that's gonna, maybe scare us, but it's really, did it scare us enough to where it still sits in the back of your head? And
Right.
there are, I agree. Exorcist is definitely one of them. That whole Freddy Krueger, this is God, yeah. And I mean, he was
The other,
very serious in that role at the time.
yeah, he was. Yeah, he didn't play the comedian until like the third or fourth movie.
Dream
Um,
Warrior is, I think, when the comedy came in because the first
yeah.
two movies, Freddy and Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy's Revenge, I just recall him being more serious. In fact, I think in the second movie he was even more violent. I mean,
Oh no, in the, in
he
the second
slashed up an
movie,
entire pool party.
yeah, he slashed a whole pool party. And in that movie, the one that sticks out to me in that movie was specifically where he explains his plan to, I think his name is, I can't remember his name, but he explains the plan to the guy that he's taken over, and he's like, "You got the body, and I've got the brains," and he pulls off like his scalp, and you could see his brains. I remember that really got my attention. And then of course the third one, I think is the one that's kind of scared me the most. I would say it, it
Dream
was
Warrior.
it was when they were trying to bury his bones, and his bones he took over his own body, and he started. It was Jesse. Thank you. Um, and he took over his own body, and like he had um, this fight with like the father and the other guy. And then he buries he partially buries one of the guys, and he goes and then he just like collapses. I thought that was pretty, because as I said back then, I had a fear of skeletons. Now, Freddy Krueger skeleton, yeah, yeah. So those movies really got to me. Those really, and I think that's why I really tended to like them.
Yeah, somehow you got to wonder. It's so funny. Our parents let us watch that stuff, and now you got not my generation, but the generation in between us that is like dead set on not letting their kids watch it. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I didn't go on a murder spree after watching all these horror movies. In
Right?
fact, I, tried to actually stay away from doing those things because I was watching these horror movies. I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, I'll tell you what, the movie that scares the shit out of me to this day, and I have not watched it since I was a kid, and I'm not going to watch it. Poltergeist.
Oh yeah, yeah. That one was, like for some reason, like that didn't get me as much as like some of the other ones, but that was still pretty memorable.
Oh my goodness, that movie. Man, you want to talk about scaring the crap out of me? I still get you. I mean, my wife, I was actually, as I was trying to put the panel together on my screenshot, I asked my wife, I said, what movies have, and I was going through the movies I thought of. And I go, what movies have scared the hell out of you the most? And she goes, Poltergeist. I'm like, yeah, I know that. That's mine too. And, that's a movie neither one of us will watch again. Uh, I still get eerie's with Carolyn, Carolyn, don't go into they're here.
Yeah,
I'm smart. Dude, the guy who did that, I'm smart. Dude was so freaky looking. He scared the crap out of me then.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. There was movies like that. Um,
and it was
like
rated PG.
was it? Jeez.
It was rated PG.
Or you got the alien where the alien pops out of the chest. That's a memorable one. Um, that was freaky when I first saw that shit.
I think that was even, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to Alien, they didn't even know that was going to happen the way it did. In fact, the one lady who got the blood all over her, the one actress,
Uh huh.
um, actually, her legitimate scream was apparently legitimate. She was like, she didn't expect to get sprayed on. So it kind of freaked her out.
Yeah. So that, I mean, stuff like that. is memorable. Them dumping the blood on Carrie, and
Oh,
then her face right afterwards, right before she closes all the doors and sets everything on fire. That face. That,
oh, that iconic face. Yeah,
mm-hmm,
where it was kind of like they did this on purpose and had no idea what to go. That's
yes.
actually one of that there is something there to be said for earlier Stephen King movies
Mm-hmm,
being made. They seem to kind of back then, and then they really lost it in the 90s. They seem to kind of want to stay a little faithful to his idea versus try to make it their own.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, that scene with Carrie, you were like, oh my god, and then that look on her face.
You're like, oh shit. Yeah, there was that one. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Um, there's some Tim Burton ones too. Specifically, Large Marge.
Yeah, that was from Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, that was the Pee Wee's Big Adventure, and
Yep.
in the middle of this really happy movie about a really light problem, somebody lost his bike got stolen or whatever. He hitchhikes and he gets into this truck, and this woman,
Mm.
uh, and the woman just immediately starts telling the story, and she's telling it really creepy, and I loved it because you could tell it was building up to something, and I didn't realize that it was that the buildup was so soon, but it was like she talks about like there was a horrible accident here a long time ago. Oh yes, that one right
That's what you're talking. That look.
there. Mm-hmm.
I got
Yes.
to remember giving her, for the time frame of that movie, that look right there. Oh, that is, there's a reason why it's seared into our brains because it's like, oh shit,
Mm-hmm.
we know
You know.
what this chick is capable, and she just goes on a murder spree.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I kind of don't blame her. But yes, with the Large Marge thing, she starts telling the story of this horrible accident that happened like 15 years ago today or something like that.
Yep.
And when they pulled her out of the wreckage, she looked like this, and like they go to that claymation face, and it's I remember that scared me. That used to scare me a lot. Um, it scared Pee Wee, like ah, and then like all of a sudden she was normal again, and then she drops him off at that bar, and then he says Large Marge sent me, and everyone's like, but Large Marge has been dead. See, so then I was talking to her ghost. That right there,
Yeah.
Tim. That is pure Tim Burton art right there. I don't know whatever happened to that. I hope that it's in a museum somewhere. Just specifically this model, because it was so
Unexpected.
it was unexpected. It was so unexpected, and looking back, it is an iconic picture. I hope they, as I said, I hope they have that picture or that model somewhere.
I could believe that too. Pop culture Avenger,
Oh yeah.
watching Alien and holding it. Yeah, yeah. That picture there. I mean, it's only for a few seconds. It's only for maybe a second or two. But
Yes.
he's like, I think I'll get off here now.
Yeah. It was really something that like you would never forget, as especially at watching that as a child.
I don't
Uh,
think any of us were expecting it. I mean, we were all kids. We were at the time. For those of you who may not know, yes, a lot of us watched Pee Wee's Playhouse growing up. You don't like that? Tough shit. Go watch it. It was actually quite good. And some very famous people came out of that.
mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. You had Lawrence Fishburne, who was Cowboy
Yep.
Curtis. Yeah.
I was going to say Lawrence Fishburne, but you beat me to it. So everybody's got to get a start somewhere. And yeah, we grew up on it. It was fun. And then he does the movie, and then that scene just comes out of nowhere. And
Yeah.
you're kind of like,
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
kid, you're like, ah, shit.
Yeah. The rest of the movie like didn't affect me that way, but that shot did. Yeah, that 1 second shot did. Uh,
It it
speaking
it
of
is
like
definitely good.
speaking of like claymation and stuff like that, the other thing that it didn't scare me, but it always put chills in the back of my spine. So I don't watch. I normally don't watch Nightmare Before Christmas except for like once a year. But it's the end of the song where they introduce Jack Skellington. He comes out of the well, and everyone's going la la la, but like he's coming out of the water, and the water's like dripping off of him. For some reason, I really like that shot, and
Actually,
it,
that's one of my that's actually one of my oldest daughter's favorite movies, and I'm pretty sure it's her favorite Halloween movie. She
it's one of
loves
mine.
that. She loves the Nightmare Before Christmas. And it was actually a very long time till I actually saw the whole thing all the way through, and I was like, damn, I should have watched this sooner. I do love the song. This is Halloween. This is Halloween. 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 I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of, but I mean, it's Tim Burton, and the dude's nuts.
Yes,
The dude is completely nuts, but he does great things. He's like Stephen King. He does great things with his insanity.
yes, like Beetlejuice. That was a good one too. Although nothing there stood out for me, to be honest. Nothing from there, other than the daylight come on, we
We
want to
want to
go home.
go home.
The jaws in the chest, eating the doctor's hands, and the Thing remake still difficult to.
Yes.
I haven't seen the Thing remake.
No, this is not the remake. This is from the original. Remember, he was trying to do
Yeah,
chest compressions and then plop.
right,
Uh,
right. Yeah, I'm assuming it was done exactly the same in the remake.
no, it didn't happen in the remake.
Oh, it didn't happen in the remake. Okay.
No, don't do. I'm gonna tell you right now. Don't waste your time with the remake. It ain't worth it. It ain't got nothing. It don't hold a candle to John Carpenter's The Thing. Not even close. It doesn't even hold a candle to The Thing from the Other Planet, which the thing John Carpenter did is somewhat based on from the 50s.
Right.
But yeah, that part there, yeah, I gotta be honest. There are some, and I mean, that's what we were talking about. Even PCAT was talking about it. The practical effects. Here we are. What this came out in '82, so we're almost 92, oh 02, 22. We're almost 30 years in, and the effects still hold up.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's I mean that's how you can tell their classes. If you can watch a movie that is 20, 30 years old, and it it still if and it affects you the same way it would have affected people back then. Yeah, that's a classic. That's something you can watch over and over. Um, you even if you've seen it a million times, you know how it ends. You still enjoy watching it. You still enjoy going through that journey. Um, which is why um, like I'm like when I got older, like the older I got, the more I want to say I don't want to say sadistic, but the more accepting of the stuff that I got. Um, so like I didn't see The Exorcist until like later on when I was a little older, and so watching that, um, there's like a bunch of scenes in there that stand out to me. But I like it's like the head spinning around.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
I
the
feel those effects are better than CGI today. Pop culture Avenger. You know what? I cannot argue with that.
hmm
CGI has gotten better over time, but it doesn't put near the fear that many of the practical effects have done. And there is
exactly
something to be said with practical effects. I mean, you can have some CGI, but don't forget the past.
right. Um, yeah, exactly. And so like there was that. There was the stairs where she went down the stairs backwards or whatever. That was creepy. I'm kind of that was one of those things where I was like, how did they do that? And I went back and I learned how they did it and all that stuff. Um,
Well, I love that thing you taught us about when we were talking. So, folks, for those of you who don't know, last week we were talking classic horror, and Then Jack and Positive Candor got on Jaws, and we just went the last 15 minutes talking about Jaws. And he talked about, Jack talked about the screenshot, like the background's getting further away, but
They did it in Vertigo a lot in Hitchcock. In fact,
yeah.
that was the effect that they would do. But if you put a person in front of it, the person looks like he's staying still while the background looks like it's going away. It's supposed to give you like a woozy effect, like a yeah.
And I thought that was actually a great analogy. I had never, I mean, I had seen the scenes plenty of times in many different movies, but I had never, understood that. So now having that little bit of a education nugget is going to make next time I watch Jaws very appreciative.
hmm Yeah, yeah,
Oh
definitely.
God.
And they do it in you'll see it in just about any movie now or any TV show. It's a standard thing that people do nowadays. So you'll probably see it a lot. But the two movies where it was made famous was Vertigo and Jaws.
Coming downstairs haunts me in Exorcist.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the power
Look,
of crazy compels you.
I'm gonna be honest. It surprises me that I could watch The Exorcist and still not watch Poltergeist. I
hmm
can watch The Exorcist. Don't get me wrong; it still scares the shit out of me. I mean, especially that whole head thing. When I was a kid, I was like this. I was like, when I saw it the first time, I was like, I was holding my neck. I was like, this looks so painful.
The actress who played little Linda Blair, her name was, I believe, she did a great job. She did a really good job.
Well, they threw you for a loop too, where she's like literally as the demon, she grabs, lick me, lick me, lick me.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy.
It's like what? And you gotta remember when we're talking about when these movies were created. This was a whole different era than we are in 2020, where everything is PC, culturally sensitive. Unless you're a certain type of person, then your opinion doesn't matter. They didn't make movies back then for that.
Some of those scenes
They
would not
just
have.
made movies.
Yeah, some of those scenes would not have gone well if they were released nowadays.
Oh, not even close.
Yeah,
Not a chance in hell.
yeah. There'd be campaigns against it and everything.
Yeah, unfortunately, people just don't like entertaining. But the funny thing is this is what I understand. When you're young, and I'm in my 40s now, and I'll be honest, getting scared ain't exactly as thrilling as it used to be. Obviously, I'm older. I've got some health problems, so kind of, I don't need that exhilaration quite like I used to.
hmm
But when I was much younger, I was a kid, and I'm seeing all this stuff. Uh, it's just like wow. It when you actually have movies that scare you, and they still stick in your mind to this day.
hmm
And actually, Modern Monster, yeah, I'm gonna say this. Yes, yeah,
Yes, that's a good
that
one too.
was. Yeah, we talked about this, Monster Fan. We talked about this the other day when we were talking about Alfred Hitchcock and how he just was the master of suspense. But not only was he the master of suspense, he was the guy who kind of pulled that twist ending. I
Yeah,
know a lot of people seem to think that was
he was
M.
very
Night
good at it.
Shyamalan's
He's very good at
thing,
doing that.
but you know, Alfred Hitchcock could pull it off. But he was never, into the horror thing. He had a horror bone, but he did it suspensefully, which was
Yes.
just awesome.
By the way, I believe I don't know if this is true, but I because when Alfred Hitchcock would work in the Hollywood backlot, uh, a young Steven Spielberg used to watch him work.
I think I read that.
Yeah,
I could be not certain, but I could believe it.
yeah, and so like he got to see him work and stuff like that. And of course, it was Steven Spielberg who later on took with Vertigo, or like after Vertigo, did Jaws and did that shot. He might have learned it straight from Alfred Hitchcock himself.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah,
I would not be surprised. I'd have to look it up, but I would definitely not be surprised.
yeah, I'd have to look that
Um,
up too. It's just something that came to mind.
well, we talked about Jaws last week, but we can bring that. Jaws scared the fuck out of me as a child. I mean, I lived in Florida, for God's sakes, in Jacksonville, Florida, when I saw this. Do you think I was going back in the ocean? No, it took 2 years before I'd get back in the ocean again. That's how freaking scary that movie was to me.
Yeah, by then, like I wasn't so scared of them anymore. Certain scenes anymore. As I said before, when I after seeing it, I wanted to go to SeaWorld to see the shark encounter. Um, so but I found that I found a really fun film to be honest. Not exactly scary, but it was like thrilling. It was more like to me, it was more of a thriller than it was like a suspense or anything. Like there was suspense in it with the fin and everything. By the way, something else that Steven Spielberg probably learned from Hitchcock was how to do suspense. Um, but you got they
Close
got into a lot
Encounters of the
more.
Third Kind.
Yeah, so they got a lot more. Like there was a lot. I don't know. It's just something about Jaws where it's like I wanted to like I was into sharks for like half a year after that. I wanted to go to Universal Studios when the the Jaws experience came out for the backlot tour and everything. And then, to watch, actually go through it and have the big old animatronic shark come like spray water at you and shit. It's fun. It was good. It was great.
Well, that's where I was going with when we talked about this earlier. It's like, our fear is based on different factors. So whereas I was scared of the ocean for almost 2 years, you became fascinated with sharks. And
Right.
that's great how, that just shows how we all view horror, suspense, whatever differently. I mean, I know people who, and I don't mean to, I'm not going to call it names, but I know a lot of people that are still shit death scarified of clowns.
Oh yeah. And
And,
nowadays, because especially nowadays, because they're releasing more movies, like they re-release like the It movies and stuff like that. Um, Jaws kept a lot of people out of water for you. I remember Kevin
yeah,
Smith was talking about that in his podcasts. Actually, he watched Jaws and he wasn't in the water for years as well himself. I mean, that's almost like a universal feeling that people have. I think when they watch Jaws, something that I didn't share, but a lot of other people did.
yeah,
Um,
a lot of it, apologies. Yeah, a lot of us shared that sensation, but I think sometimes it depended on when you saw it, what your thoughts were, what your feelings were. I'll tell you what, you know what? If it hadn't been for that kid getting eaten, I
mhm,
probably would have gotten back in the water, but they killed a kid in Jaws.
right.
And I'm a little kid at the time, so I'm gonna like,
That's probably that could be why. That could be why. Like there could have been a lot of kids who just like you know that could have been me. So
it was very traumatic at the time. I would say traumatic. It wasn't traumatic, but it was scared the shit out of us kids at the time. And I think that's what did it. It's okay when you're a little kid and you're seeing adults get killed, that's one thing. When it's kids, especially when you're a little kid, and even as adults, when we see those things. I mean, I give an example. Let's be honest. We all were totally for John Wick murdering everyone because his puppy was killed.
yes, yes,
There are certain things you don't do. And it was all because of a puppy, and it was like, nope, we get it. We
yeah,
understand completely.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, the whole kid thing on the raft, and and then the mother, you know, smacks the hell out of him and says, "You knew." And my son is still dead. And she blamed, and there's a lot of weight to that because she checked his hand and she was trying to check if he was pruning or anything. And then, of course, he goes out there and, unfortunately, the Jaws gets him. And
There's a
that's,
yeah, yeah. And that's what like with Jaws. Like I could watch that movie over and over again. Um, I was never really into like the It movies. Like I watched them and I thought they were okay, but it like they didn't like affect me or anything. Um, let's see.
No, I would agree.
I, I,
But
uh,
I've read the book.
oh, there's you know what else? You know what else kind of got to me a little bit was I can't remember if it was Evil Dead or Evil Dead Two, but the scene where he chops his hand off because it's bad. It went bad.
I think that's two.
That's two.
I think
Where
that's
he's like
two.
he's laughing. He's about to do, you know, his hand's been fucking with him, and he, you know, he puts it down on the thing and he pulls out the chainsaw and he's laughing, and you don't see him actually cut it, but you see the blood come into his face, and he's like combination laugh screaming.
I remember
Like,
what the hand does to him later.
oh yeah, and it flips him off and all sorts of shit. That hand was crazy. Um, but also, what got to me was the movie after that was Army of Darkness, because once again, I told you I had a thing for skeletons, and all of a sudden you got an army of you know skeletons or whatever that he's trying to fight off. But in this one, because Army of Darkness started like it started in Army of Darkness where they really started to make it into a comedy.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it didn't scare me as much as like you know like the dancing skeletons would or something like that. You know they made them a little cartoony in Army of Darkness, um, so which was you know which helped I think. So eventually I got over my fear of skeletons.
Yeah, I don't really have a fear of anything personally as far as anymore, except for I have a fear of heights, but that's not because of anything movie related. That actually is because of a real world experience.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, so nowadays I'm more into real world. The real world scares me more than movies.
I'm gonna be honest, guys. Evil Dead 1, when they were playing cards, was scary scene. When she started talking in a demon voice.
Yeah,
Look, guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was never a fan of the Evil Dead movies, any of them. I've never seen the series. Now, don't get me wrong. I like the actor, but those movies just were never really for me. I think the only one I actually liked was the second one.
yeah.
But
'Cause I think the
personal
second one was
taste.
I think the second one was a remake of the first one. Because the first one they did, and then they remade the first one for Evil Dead Two, and apparently that one was the one that was a hit. And then they did Army of Darkness, and then they left it alone. Um,
I did like the end of Army of Darkness.
oh yeah,
Ash
that was
Sporting
pretty good.
Goods. What was it? Ash Sporting
Some
Goods.
yeah, something like that. Like, who are you, Ash? Sporting goes boom, 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 boom. Yeah, no, he was.
Hail to the king, baby.
Yeah, I love that shit. He
No,
had some great
I
one-liners.
yeah, I'm gonna have to watch Army of Darkness eventually again because that was actually a good one.
Some sugar baby.
I think it was probably my favorite of all three. I can't say I'm a big fan of the first movie.
The
Second and
first,
third, yeah,
yeah,
but they don't scare me.
the first one was more of like a independent film that they did.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I can understand that. And then the second one they tried again and they did a better job. That's why I was like, what got to me is when they chopped off his hand. When he chopped off his hand, it was like the blood just like splattering over his face.
and we
Um,
need to remember this was early Sam Raimi.
yes, there's early Sam Raimi, um, who would go on to direct great things like Spider-Man movies and uh, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, there's always fun stuff. There's always scary stuff. I'll tell you the last movie that scared the ever loving shit out of me. Was The Ring. I went to go see it. I
Mm-hmm.
was with my ex-wife at the time. We went to the movie theater and we watched it, and we left. And I'm driving home, and I'm like, I got neck hairs, and I'm still long haired at this time. I don't have a beard back then, but I'm very long haired before my military time. And I'm just like, oh shit. I ended up having nightmares that night. I had trouble sleeping. That movie just freaked the fuck out of me. The cinematography, the jump scares were done good. The subtleties were done. The music was done great. The acting was really good. And it's just everything about the movie just scared the shit out of me. And I
Hmm.
was like, that was not what I was expecting. Not that I'm complaining, but damn it, that thing scared. 7 days.
7 days. Click.
Hang up. Fuck you. Click. And then, she finally figures it out. And what does she do at the end? She puts the movie in for somebody else to watch to protect her kid. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people would say that's a bitch move, but guess what? No, that's what a parent would do.
Let's see. There was we didn't. There was things about Freddy versus Jason that I forgot to mention from before.
Yeah, go for it,
But
buddy.
so there's some trivia. There's some trivia with this one is so the original ending of Freddy versus Jason was supposed to be different, but they couldn't get the rights to Pinhead. They wanted to have Pinhead feature in at the end of the Freddy versus Jason movie. It was supposed to be they both go to hell at the end and they start fighting each other in hell, and then a bunch of they get restrained by a bunch of chains, and then Pinhead comes in and says, "Do we have a problem, boys?" And that was supposed to be the end, and
Oh, that would have been awesome.
that would have been the best ending. And I really that was such a wasted opportunity.
Oh my
um,
god, if we could have got Clay, I mean, were we talking the original Clive Barker Pinhead?
they probably could have. I don't know, but they couldn't get
Oh,
the rights to Pinhead. They just couldn't get the rights. So I mean, that's unfortunate. But I saw a promotional thing for Freddy versus Jason with Robert Englund. He went on one of these talk shows, and I forget how much spoilers they would put out back in the day. They would he told you like whole scenes and stuff like that, right? And then he goes and then the host goes, who do you think is going to win in this one? He's like, you want me to tell you a secret? He goes, okay. And he goes and he whispers in his ear, but you can still hear it from the mic. He says there's going to be a sequel. He thought there was going to be a sequel because he thought that it was going to be that successful. It wasn't that successful to the point where they made a sequel though. But if they did make a sequel, it would have been Freddy versus Jason versus Pinhead versus Ash.
yeah, I've heard about that.
And Ash,
God,
Ash,
that would have been.
Ash was supposed to win, and Sam Raimi would have directed it.
Oh man.
I would have loved to have seen that sequel.
Oh, I would love to too. Actually, I quite enjoy Freddy versus Jason. Yeah,
I,
I agree. Pop Culture Avenger. Yeah, especially we're talking Pinhead from Hellraiser 1 and 2. I mean, remember when we first see him and the whole thing. You summoned us. We came. And then they tell her, if you're lying to us, we'll rip your soul apart. And the practical effects they did for tearing up bodies.
oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah. My hands off to the old masters.
they they had to put a lot of work into making molds and filling molds and painting them to make it look exactly like the people that um, and then filling it with shit so that it looks like when they tear them apart, there's stuff that comes out. They,
Yeah.
there's so much work that goes into putting into something like that.
And you can tell they're not half assing it.
No, no, many times they don't. I've seen a lot of horror movies where they half-ass it though.
Probably budget constraints and stuff, but
Yes,
when we see some of these classics, I mean, I don't care. I mean, even on the budget some of these had, because these horror movies did not have, very high value budgets back then. Man, they made the most of what they had.
hmm yeah, they did, and and I always love seeing stuff that survived. The problem is a lot of that stuff was used a lot of the times they used latex
Yeah.
to make these things, and that does and the latex it doesn't last over time. or foam. They do a lot of foam. They make things out of foam a lot, and it doesn't last, and so they disintegrate. I don't know if you ever saw, going back to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't know if you ever
Hmm.
saw like what the costumes look like now. Uh,
No, I
they're
have
they're
not.
they're terrible looking. They look like you open, you're opening a coffin to see a dead relative, and he's like, he's like all fucking deformed and shit. Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like. But yeah, it
Oh,
doesn't.
no, wrong one.
Those things don't last long.
No,
Uh,
yeah, I mean, I understand that, but I'll be honest with you. When talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I still like the first two movies more than I like the sequel movies or the reboots. I just did not like how they were.
Same. I didn't hate them. I thought they were okay, like for like the kids of this generation or whatever. But yeah, it didn't. It didn't
It
appeal
wasn't
to me
for
as
us.
much. I'm more into I'm more curious about the Last Ronin. It's a comic book that Kevin Eastman is going to be coming out with soon, where there's all the turtles are dead but one, and he's like the last Ronin. He calls himself or whatever. And,
Now, who
and,
wouldn't have liked to have seen Ash fight this?
oh yeah, yeah, and because now it doesn't matter. Uh, yeah, Sam Raimi said like, yeah, if he had directed it, Ash would have won. And so it would have been interesting to see how Ash would kill Pinhead and Jason and Freddy. You know what I mean?
Actually, I would love to have seen that because, Ash, and even though I said I'm not the biggest Evil Dead fan, I will be honest, it would have been great to see him act like Ash and go banter to
Yes.
banter with Freddy Krueger.
I watched this year. I finally watched it this year. Was Ash versus Evil Dead? It's a TV show that
Yeah,
lasted
was that
three
any good?
seasons. It was there's parts of it where I was like, but Bruce Campbell and his acting and the way he is really good. They also had Lucy Lawless in it.
Yes, I did
Yes,
know that.
and she did excellent in that too. I think like they were trying to expand on the world and stuff like that, so they were just but it didn't get enough rate. I guess the ratings weren't good enough. It didn't get enough views and whatnot, so they canceled it after three seasons. But they ended it off of, now Ash is in the future, and apparently he's like a god, not a god, like he's like not a god, but he's like a king. He's like worshipped, and so like they've been, and so like there's so he's like there's like this colony of survivors or whatever. Evil has taken over the world, and so this lady who's been like watching over him for like years or whatever, leads him to like a vehicle, and she pulls the thing out, and it's his car. It's his classic car, but it's souped up like it was in Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they go, and then they ride off into like the sunrise or sunset or whatever. And that's how
Does he say groovy?
he says groovy.
Okay, you know what? That would actually be a fine ending for an Evil Dead series. I
Yeah.
don't think you can have an Evil Dead series have a complete ending. That would actually make sense, kind of a more open ending, kind of more like, this is just how Ash is, gets that and is like, groovy. So where does
Yes.
he go? He goes back to doing what he does.
The first episode, if you watch the movies first again, but then watch the first episode, and it feels good to see him come back. Feels good to see him back. It does.
I saw a little bit of that. And what was it he said? I'm 10 pounds overweight. 10 pounds. Okay, 30 pounds.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, he starts out like when you first see him, he's looking in the mirror and he's trying to hold his gut in and shit like that. You can tell he put on some weight.
He should have stayed whenever he could have been king. But oh well. No, yeah, but I mean, like I said, we can talk all kinds of great stuff, all kinds of movies, horror. But really, what stands out and scares you, as we, kind of talking about, we joked about some stuff, but there are still movies that I don't care how long or how old I live, they're still gonna creep me out. Oh, PCAT. I'm assuming you're talking the classic. I assume we're talking classic here. Yes. Oh my god. Oh my god. Omen. Ooh. When that woman kills herself, just jumps off and hangs. What the fuck?
I haven't seen that one in a long time. I'm trying to remember it.
Damien ends up, I guess, and I can't remember if it was his nurse, his nanny, whatever. But somehow she just ends up, if I'm not mistaken, and PCAT, if you remember this better than I do, please let me remind me. Doesn't she come out on the ledge and hang herself on their house, on Damien's house? And Damien is actually, while everybody's shocked, Damien is just looking. Nanny, thank you. Thank you, PCAT. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that again.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch that again because that boy, let's give him credit. The boy has to be emotional and somewhat demonic, and then he's got the tattoo on uh he's got the 666 tattoo on him in his head, and his father finds it. The unmasking of the original Silent Phantom the Opera by Mary shocked me as a child. If you saw it as a child, especially with the makeup and stuff, yeah,
Yeah, that makeup, that they did a good job on that makeup. I
yes, they
remember that.
did.
Yeah, yeah, and then she, like she's doing, he's doing his piano or whatever, and she's real slowly moving over. I love how it's slow with suspense and
Yeah,
everything, and then like, and then you see his face.
and he's not. He's shocked. He's like, "What the hell?" And
Right.
it's turned around. It's like, you look at him and you're like, "Why'd you do that? Why?" Talk about lack of respect. Oh, there you go. Yeah. She yells, Damien, it's all for you. Yep. I remember that. Yeah. That's one of those movies that definitely stands out, The Omen. And I didn't even put that in any I'm gonna have to fix that another time. Cause The Omen to me is like Rosemary's Baby. Just it's like, oh my god. Sometimes you don't need a shit ton of special effects, horror stuff, just a good story. Um, isn't there one recently? I haven't seen it yet, but wasn't there one recently that's been heralded as one of the best uh, kind of horror movies in a while? What's it called? Trying to think of the name. It was called Get Out, I think.
I haven't seen that yet.
I haven't either, but I've heard it was praised as a really good kind of suspense horror movie.
Right, I have to see that one. But yeah, that one I have to see. I heard good things about it too. I'll probably watch that tonight.
Imagine the audience in 1923 must
Oh
be.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. And that was back in the silent era. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
that was.
Yeah.
So it
So,
was all based on music and stuff.
hmm
I think even back then, didn't some of those, they actually had orchestras there or
yes,
musicians
yes.
playing
If
live during the movie?
if it was like a nice, rich theater, yes, they would have an orchestra. If it was like a little cheap one, it'd be someone on the piano. Depends.
But yeah, yeah, that was in the silent film there. I'll tell you what, you want to talk about silent movie area that still scares me? Nosferatu.
Yes, those are really good. That's a really good one. Yeah. Now we're going back to the Universal classics.
Well, we're going back to the silent film era. I mean, the makeup and everything back
hmm
then. I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due. I mean, some of the makeup they were able to do back then, and we've seen a lot of cheap makeup stuff we've seen in many films over time. Even nowadays, it feels like we can go back to 1920s and look at real good makeups, animation and stuff. And now it's like okay, you got CGI. Stop being cheap with it.
hmm Yeah, that's the thing about CGI nowadays is it doesn't feel. I don't know. There's something about practical effects, you can tell whether or not it's practical or
Sure.
digital. You know what I mean? And when they're practical, they feel more real to me. You know, one of the, I mean, like, like real quick, the fight in the Avengers movie, the Avengers Endgame, completely utterly CG. I love the fight, but I thought the quality of it sucked. Like the CG quality of the CG wasn't as good as like if they had been more practical and stuff like that.
I don't think they could have been. It would probably have
Nah,
cost a shit ton more.
they
But
couldn't
I
have because
understand where
yeah,
you're coming. I
I definitely get
remember
why. Yeah,
I remember Leon Gish interview. Silent films were never
yeah,
true inside, referring to orchestra. I
true.
could
Yeah,
totally understand that, but I think maybe that was one of the early gears to the what we have now. Whereas back then it was silent, so you needed the music to kind of forecast the mood with the appearance of the characters and the things that were going on. And I
right.
think that's what's
Music,
continued to evolve to this day is we still look at the music. If we didn't have the music, there are certain movies. For example, I've said this: The Shining and Jaws. I don't think they would necessarily be as scary if it wasn't for the scores.
true. The scores definitely put something into the movies. It gives the atmosphere. It gives the mood. You don't even have to have dialogue. You can have those dancing skeletons or whatever. Have them play the creepy music in the background. Have them dance to it and stuff like that. And it's adequate enough to freak anyone out.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
and you don't know, and you don't even need music to set the mood. Alfred Hitchcock, used music sparingly, and when he did use it, he used it to great effect.
Yes, he did. But
Yes,
that's why we talked about yesterday why he was the master of suspense. Somehow he was able to just be that good of a suspense master. Pop culture Avenger, black and white adds to the atmosphere. Considering when we talked classic horror, not last week, we were talking about things like The Creature from the Black Lagoon, where it was like they somehow showed beautiful clear water, and it's like this guy's in a suit, he's underwater. This is this time frame, and they make it just look so good.
crystal clear.
Yeah, crystal clear. Thanks, honey. Um, yeah, exactly. I had absolute love for that era of horror, and I love how it's evolved over time. But unfortunately, horror kind of gets similar, the same kind of I don't know take that sci-fi got for a long time. It's like these are subgenres; they're not
Right.
really important. And even with great movies like Jaws and The Thing and The Ring and even The Grudge. I mean, The Grudge kind of freaked me out. That was the last movie that kind of freaked me out. And I only saw it because Sarah Michelle Gellar was in it and I was a big Buffy fan back then. But I mean, those movies, I mean, the whole thing with the Grudge, I'll end it with that. It's like, uh, yeah, exactly. I was like, oh shit, I like this. That scares me. This is um what's what we got here? Monster fan. Nosferatu 1922 version had a bunch of fright scenes when he pops up from the coffin like a jack in the box. I remember that.
Hmm.
When he comes from the darkness through the castle gate and when he comes from the inside. Yes.
Yes.
They really did a wonderful job with that movie and I still think I actually have seen the remake. I think it was made in the 70s or 80s of Nosferatu, and I thought they really honestly stayed about pretty faithful.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, Nosferatu. Like like I don't like. I'm not sure why it did. Like I know because there's Nosferatu and then Dracula was the one that got really famous and stuff like that. I'm not sure why Nosferatu never got that same type of recognition.
I don't either. It's maybe it was just the timing or anything.
Could be.
I think they could make well, they did a real great Dracula movie with and now I can't think of his damn name. Bram
Uh,
Stoker's Dracula.
oh, Bram Stoker's Dracula. That. Oh man, who played
And,
that one?
and I know everybody knows it, and it's like it's burned in my head. I know who it was.
Oh man.
Wasn't Keanu Reeves in it? And oh god, what's her name? The one who Renata Ryder, and God, who played Dracula? Why can't I remember this?
I like I last time I saw that movie, I was a teenager, I think. So I
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Who played Dracula? Damn it!
like I know
And
interview.
that was her,
I
Gary
know.
Oldman. God,
Okay,
I
Gary
can't believe
Oldman.
I couldn't believe
Yeah.
his.
Yeah,
Oh,
'cause
thank you, PCAT. Yeah, Gary Oldman. God, I can't believe I forgot that.
I
And
know that
then
I was about to say Tom Cruise because I was getting him confused with Interview with a Vampire.
Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah.
And then there was Robert De Niro did Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which I thought was also very good, a little more towards the book. And that's kind of what Bram Stoker's Dracula was. It was a little closer to the book,
Hmm.
and I've read both of them. And so I quite enjoyed how those reiterations were done as being a little more faithful. I still love the classics, don't get me wrong. I'm never going to not get tired of hearing, I don't drink coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah, it just that subtle little part there. I don't drink coffee. That I still get chills from that. There's a hold on a second. Monster fan, what do you get here? There is a book of studies, sound effects in horror films, and argues that it's sound that makes them scary. So he would agree with you.
Okay,
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, visuals are one thing, but I've got to be honest, as a guy who's more audio and tactile, trust me, what scares me more is audio, not visual. Those ambient noises that have, it's like I said, when it came to The Shining,
Hmm.
I didn't think The Shining was that scary on its own, but the music and the ambiance that he put into it. Oh my God. I only saw it 6 months ago and I was like, oh shit, this is good. And it's like I can watch Jaws. I could watch Jaws now and still get the hairs on the back of my neck. Dun 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 dun.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's a classic. We all know this stuff, and I think that's a great thing to when it comes to cinematic masterpiece. And I think it's something we're losing. You get a lot of these. Okay, so I've been told Get Out is really good. I'm gonna have to give it a shot.
Right.
The last suspenseful movie I saw that I thought was really great was on Netflix, and it was called Hush. And it was a very low budget. It was only $1 million, and it was based on this dude trying to kill this woman who's deaf. And I'll tell you what would really get you throughout this is the fact that she can't hear a damn thing, and they mute things as you're going through it.
Ah, from her perspective. Okay.
Yes, and it is freaking suspenseful. And it's a very small cast. I think there's only about 4 or 5 people in the whole movie.
Huh.
But I just quite enjoyed it. Actually, my wife and I enjoyed it. We started watching it one night, and then we got tired and we had to call it a night. And then the next morning, I get up and we're getting breakfast and everything, and I'm about to start playing the movie, and she goes, "You're not starting that movie without me, are you?" I'm like, "Not anymore." So, if you like a good suspenseful thriller with some ambiance, music, and then that silent stuff, oh my God. That's what was so eerie about the movie Hush was the silence that came around it.
Hmm.
Just there's no sound. I mean, nothing. There's no sound. There's just
Right.
visual, and you're like, this is what she's going through because she can't hear anything.
That kind of reminds me of I think it was in Freddy's Dead where that guy, I think his name was Carlos. He had the hearing aid, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, you
and he
know,
does the chalkboard thing.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
god, that was horrible. That was
But the
so mean.
but the part where like before he gave him the hearing aid back or whatever, he's walking around the boiler room and Freddy's behind him like, hey, hey, he's jumping around and shit.
Give me back my hearing aid. He puts his hearing aid in, and now every drop and everything
Yeah,
is.
is like, yeah, way too loud and his head explodes.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Nah, man, you wouldn't."
You wouldn't do that, would you, man? No, no. Yeah, like
The sad part is that reference is lost on people who don't know what a chalkboard is anymore.
true. Yeah, I love how he stretches the chalkboard.
Yeah. And he
His
does
face,
that thing.
his face when he does it too. Ooh.
Yeah, definitely. All right, man. We're at an hour and 6 minutes. I have had a great time. Monster Fan PCAT, Pop Culture Avenger, Jack Beers. Jack, it's always a pleasure to have you. You know that.
Yep.
And
Are you still there?
yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you like you disappeared for a second.
Okay. I didn't. It didn't show up on mine. Do you have any final thoughts you want to
Oh,
add
final
before we call
thoughts.
it a night?
Uh, other than other than like I really like those movies. Like the ones that the ones that really stand out to me are like the Freddy Krueger, This Is God Now, Jack Skellington coming out of the thing, the skeleton dance. Um, you know, be, because I'm a film guy. Like I kind of understand that like the stuff is fake and like I was really interested in how they did the practical effects back then, so that's part of the reason why it doesn't scare me like today, that type of stuff. But they still, I still love those scenes. um, Still love
Yeah.
all of them.
I may know everything in the thing is fake, but it's still, whew, still terrifyingly beautiful.
Yeah,
Still terrifyingly beautiful.
master storytellers some of these people are.
I agree. Pop Culture Avenger, I am glad you had a good time hanging out. I hope PCAT, I hope Monster Fan had a great time. Guys, I'm going to end it with this. This is MB Geeks Let's Talk. We talked about movies that scare us. Still to this day, they could be the entire movie, just part of a movie, just maybe one section of a movie. But there is something in the horror genre that has stood out for all of us in one shape or form. And it all affects us differently. We all have different movies that scare us more than others. For those of us who have movies that scare us that don't scare other people, guess what? That's why I said early on, culture, history, we all have fears for a certain reason. But you know what? We somehow still want to get scared. Don't know what a problem is. I guess it's just part of human nature. But folks, everyone, have a great time. Jack, it was awesome having you here again. As always,
Awesome being
I
here.
haven't figured out what next week's going to be. In fact, I think what is next week? What is next
Next week
Saturday
is
and
going to be
Sunday?
Halloween.
Ooh, Saturday and Sunday, 30, 31st. Oh, I got to think of something good for that. Or you can think of something good and pitch me some ideas. We'll figure it out. All
Sure.
right, guys, y'all have a good one. I don't really have an. I'm gonna throw just for fun. I'm gonna throw my horror outro I did because I was quite proud of this one. So y'all have a good one. Peace and long life. Live long and prosper. Check out Jack Beers on Twitter and have a blast.